It started with a phone call that would break a 16-year-old boy's world into splinters. Ethan, Ethan, I'm so sorry, said Miss Flannery, voice trembling through the speaker. Your parents, Mark and Evelyn, were on that flight back from Seattle. It went down near Boulder Ridge. There were no survivors. Ethan Carter stood frozen in the hallway of his high-rise Chicago apartment, staring blankly at the family photo on the wall. His mother's smile, his dad's goofy, sideways peace sign. The three of them at Yellowstone just last year. Now, gone. No warnings, no goodbyes. Just a crash in a remote mountain pass. Within hours, his life became a blur of grief counselors, lawyers, caseworkers. There was no next of kin nearby. No grandparents, no siblings. Just one obscure name in the family tree. Claire Hayes, his mother's cousin, whom he hadn't seen since he was a toddler. CPS made the arrangements. You'll go stay with Claire and her husband, Martin, they told him. It's temporary until we figure out the estate. They run a rest house out in Oregon, Willow Creek. Willow Creek wasn't on most maps. Located deep in the forested mountains of Oregon, the town had one gas station, a closed diner, and a church with its steeple bent from a storm. The Hayes Rest House stood 3 miles out, nestled behind thick pine trees, accessible by a gravel road that looked untouched in years. As the taxi dropped Ethan off, the evening mist clung to the trees like gauze. Claire greeted him with open arms and watery eyes. She was in her early 50s, hair silvered but kind, smelling faintly of lavender and fireplace smoke. Oh, sweetheart. Come here, she whispered, hugging him tightly. Martin was quieter, a grizzled man with sun-damaged skin and eyes that didn't quite smile. We're real sorry, son. We'll make you feel at home. The rest house was old, real old. A creaky 2-story timber building with floral wallpaper that curled at the corners and stairs that moaned with every step. Portraits of unfamiliar guests lined the halls, smiling faces in black and white, decades old. Ethan was given the room at the end of the upstairs hall. Simple, with a wrought iron bed, heavy quilt, and a window facing the woods. Silence wasn't just common here, it felt enforced. For the first few days, Ethan said little. He wandered the property, sat by the fireplace, stared at the blank screen of his phone. No reception, no Wi-Fi, just wind, rustling pine needles, and the low gurgle of the creek behind the house. Claire cooked warm meals, stews, cornbread, and tea, and tried to make conversation. Martin mostly stayed outside, fixing things that didn't need fixing. On the 4th night, Ethan was awakened by a knock. Not on his door, on the window. He sat up slowly, heart thudding. The glass fogged from the inside, the mist outside making it nearly opaque. He stepped closer. A handprint. Faint, slender, pressed against the glass from the outside. It slowly faded, as if wiped away. He said nothing the next day. That night it happened again. But this time, he heard whispering. Not words, just the rhythm of breath, soft and deliberate, like someone speaking from underwater. He snapped awake, drenched in sweat. When Ethan finally told Claire, she looked genuinely worried, but not alarmed. Honey, you've been through a terrible shock. Sometimes, grief plays tricks on our minds. I know what I saw, Ethan insisted. We'll talk to someone, she offered. There's a therapist in town, a good man. Dr. Roland Mercer arrived the next day, a tall, wiry man with gray hair and a gentle tone. He didn't press Ethan for answers. Instead, he listened. You're not crazy, the doctor said softly. But trauma can twist the edges of reality. Let's get you on a light sedative, help you sleep. The pills helped, at first, until the dreams began. The first time Ethan saw her in the dream, She stood ankle deep in the black water behind the house. Her head was tilted, her long wet hair clinging to her shoulders. She had no face, just smooth, pale skin, where eyes, nose, and mouth should be. And yet, he felt her watching him. When he awoke, his bed sheets were soaked, not with sweat, but with water. His socks were wet, and his window was open. The third night, he saw her standing in the hallway, just past the crack of his door, motionless. He screamed. Claire rushed in. She held him, rocking him like a child. Martin stood behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. "This isn't good," he muttered. On a rainy afternoon, Ethan wandered the house alone. Claire and Martin had driven into town for supplies. He explored the attic, an old, dusty room filled with forgotten trunks and boxes. Behind a stack of crates, he noticed a panel of the wall that seemed newer than the rest. It wasn't nailed in. It slid open. Inside was a small room. Stone walls, no window, a bed with restraints, a metal table, a rusted tray with old medical tools. He gagged, and then he saw it. A journal. Inside, scribbled in looping handwriting. "She comes at night. She lives in the water. She takes the ones who cry." Page after page, entries detailed encounters with a woman in the creek, dating back to the 1960s. All patients who stayed here. All disappeared. Ethan's mother's name was on one of the final pages. That night, Ethan pretended to sleep. At 2:13 a.m., the door creaked open. A figure stepped in, wearing a long black dress and a porcelain mask. She stood silently at the foot of the bed. Ethan didn't scream. He watched. The figure tilted its head, just like the woman in his dreams. Then she turned and walked back out. Ethan followed, quietly, step by step, down the stairs, through the kitchen, to the basement. There, under flickering bulbs, stood Claire, removing the black dress and mask. Martin was with her, whispering, "Another week, and the kid'll break, like the others." Claire nodded. "Once he's declared unstable, the money is ours. The trust fund releases at 18. We can't wait that long." Ethan backed away, heart racing, gut twisting. He ran upstairs, packed what he could, and bolted into the night. Rain fell hard, the woods howling around him. No flashlight, no plan, just panic. Branches tore his skin. Mud soaked his shoes. He didn't stop until he reached Hollow Pines Sheriff's Station, 5 miles out. Trembling, soaked, breathless, he told the deputy everything. The sheriff and 2 officers returned with him to the rest house. But Claire and Martin were gone. So was Dr. Mercer. But they left behind the mask and the journal. Claire and Martin were arrested 2 weeks later, found hiding near the California border. They confessed to everything, the plan to exploit Ethan's trauma, drugging his food, planting visions. The rest house had long been a haven for scams, tricking patients into breakdowns and claiming their estates. But some things couldn't be explained, like the woman in the creek. Multiple search teams found no source of water near the house, no physical evidence of flooding, no logical way for Ethan's bed to be soaked. And that mask? DNA analysis showed traces of human skin cells fused into the ceramic. To this day, Ethan believes something real was watching him, something beyond Claire and Martin. The woman in the creek wasn't just their tool. She was real, and she's still waiting.